Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us again. I'm your host, Trickster. This is S.H.E Gallery Show. We're exploring street art and graffiti art tonight. We have a special guest, Miss Amina Hawkins. She is a musician, an artist, an MC, a poet, a community advocate, an educator, a writer, an author, a lecturer, a filmmaker, and many other talents and titles. She is an internationally recognized voice of grassroots hip-hop activism and is consistently involved in the preservation of Chicago's hip-hop culture and community. She is also a founder of both Chicago Hip Hop Initiative and the Hip Hop Community Empowerment Collaborative and Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Month, which is an officially recognized annual observance here in Chicago. Welcome, Amina. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Again, this is the S.H.E Gallery Show. Sharing his energy, gallery.net. We're available online. You can reach us. Also, this is a live call-in hotline show at 312-738-1060. Give us a call. Our topic tonight being graffiti and street art, and the focal is education and vocation. We're going to be talking about different elements of educational aspects and learning graffiti in the graffiti form. And as it relates to other hip-hop forms, we're joined again by Amina Hawkins, and she's going to be sharing with us and some of her expertise. She is also on the faculty at Columbia College, and she is currently teaching courses in the history of hip-hop and African-American music at Columbia. So yeah, give us a brief summation on some of your involvement in the history or in the Chicago field, and how it relates to how it grew into at Columbia and your efforts at Columbia.
I became a part of the Chicago hip hop scene in the early '90s.
Okay.
And started organizing events. I organized Urban Minds Networking Socials, which was a monthly networking social event that met in Wicker Park and in Lincoln Park, and then that transcended around 2000 when we did the Chicago One Love campaign, which was a year-long campaign to celebrate Chicago's hip-hop community and culture. Mm-hmm. And then in 2003, our organization, the Chicago Hip Hop Initiative, which you mentioned, was able to get the Chicago City Council to recognize the entire month of July as Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Month, and that was approved by a unanimous City Council resolution, which was really exciting. So that happened in 2003. And since then, we've just been, organizing, collaborating with other artists and organizers around the city to produce events in July that support and recognize Chicago's hip-hop history and the pioneers who paved the way for those doing the work now. People like yourself are part of that, and the reason why it's so important that we have a month to recognize our own, because we learn about everyone else's history but our own. And then in 2010, myself, Kulal Chris, and Ange 13 became United States Cultural Envoys. We spent 2 weeks in the West African nation of Côte d'Ivoire, celebrating and sharing our brand of hip-hop. So we traveled 7 regions of the country in 2 weeks, meeting with artists, having workshops, concerts, and just really engaging them around hip-hop and hip-hop practice. So that was really exciting.
That is so fabulous.
And then I started teaching at Columbia College in 2014. Where I teach a course in hip-hop history, which is really exciting, in a city like Chicago with so much rich history, to be able to teach, something like that to my students. And a course in black music that kind of shows the trajectory of African music practice here in America.
Okay, that is so fabulous to hear. I'm glad you're joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Again, we're on live at CAN TV. CAN TV 21, cantv.org/hotline. This is S.H.E Gallery, sharing his energy. We're available online at sharinghisenergygallery.net. And alternatively, you can call us in right now at 312-738-1060. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Trickster, your host. And let's recap some of our previous episodes. The most recent episode, we covered galleries and collectors. As it relates to graffiti and street arts, and we had a special guest, Ms. Tracy Kostenbader, and she shared with us some of her experiences in the local scene, and she was active in developing and doing mural projects and providing a place for artists to come and commune and share in their skill sets and expertise and to learn. And we talked about galleries and collectors here in Chicago and abroad, internationally. What has been some of your experience in as far as graffiti and graffiti art and its inception or its introduction into galleries? I know you're not really into, but I mean you were part of the movement, and you foster many events that relate to it.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely am overwhelmed sometimes by some of the majestic pieces that are put up around the city. I love graffiti art. I think it's an important part of hip hop culture, and I'm always, representing that fifth element. So it's about education and empowerment and understanding, the elements that we're working with. But I love graffiti art. I celebrate it. I know that Chicago is the home of some of the most creative and innovative artists, and I love the way that larger institutions are opening up to our visual art, and art that we've celebrated for so long are now being open and welcomed in public art spaces.
Okay.
Probably more than ever before.
Okay.
And I like that. And I like seeing artists be able to get compensated for the work that they do.
And then we also we had View to Media, and it portrayed a movement of the art form collectively through the gallery circuit, and what happened in the gallery circuit, and to the point where now certain galleries and certain artists are having their work taken from in the public. They're cutting the whole, taking the whole,
out.
and putting it into the gallery. And I thought the irony of that was so interesting that we covered that. But as it related to galleries and collectors, we talked about the whole concept of the outsider art movement. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the outsider art movement was a movement that was the precursor to the graffiti movement, and it was the defining point where artists decided to reinvent themselves and to create another gallery circuit that mirrored, that attempted to mirror the mainstream gallery circuit. And it was interesting in terms called outside art, because they took themselves outside of the gallery, but they created it into another gallery circuit per se.
Right.
And then we as street artists and urban artists, and even of that era, the next movement became outsider art for real. It became public art, and the public art movement flourished. That was a quick point that we covered in our that previous episode. And the top or focal point was being the phenomenon of graffiti. How it came about and how many different avenues it has gone, and it has become a global culture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just I wanted to touch on that last point that you said. It makes me think of other art that we create in spaces that are sacred to us, and then they become public and people know about them, and then all of a sudden this thing that we held sacred is now in a whole different dimension. And we have to figure out and rework our ideas to find ways to still keep the sanctity of that art intact.
Yeah, that is so profound. And we spoke earlier about the elements and the different elements of hip hop and how they interrelate. And I was saying that the creative aspect of what we do with our craft, and that which was one of the other previous sessions, which we talked about the art and craft, we talked about the phenomenon, and we talked about galleries and collectors. And this episode today is about education. And we have a caller. Thanks for calling. Okay, let's take a caller.
Hey, yo, this Orc One, what up, man?
Oh, Orkwan, how you doing, brother?
Man, cool.
Peace and blessings. Glad to have you call in. What's going on? You have a question or concern? I'm sure you might want to just share some stuff with us.
Yeah, I'm just checking in, man. Love the show. I like what y'all got going on over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt. As always, innovator, urban legend, pioneer, Chicago and internationally. Definitely glad to have you call in, man. Please share some more with us. Our topic tonight is education and art. Graffiti art and street art is an education and a vocation. We want to have different references as it relates to maybe even academic components for youth and a youth audience. How we can transfer our skill sets to these different things, because they are directly transferable in many respects. But yeah, feel free to jump in as you may. Are you there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think for anybody that's coming up in that business, if they understand that it is a business and they get out here and they name themselves, it kind of goes back to the whole graffiti thing, how we getting up. So the main thing is to get your audience up, get your crowd up, try to figure out how to get your name hot. And if they're paying you any type of money, then you're successful. If you make $1 off something you drew on, then you're doing good. Back when I was coming up, that's what we was on. So for any artist that's coming up in that business, you got to understand that the galleries, the clients, the whole thing that's a structure that's set up like that. So if you got a particular crowd that likes what you're doing, and you got a gallery that can represent you, and you're able to do what you need to do, it works. You know what I mean? I mean, at least for me, that's how it worked. That's how I went international, because I kept traveling. So for any artist out there that's, first of all, any graffiti writer that's able to make a living off of what we did illegally, you're lucky. So if you just take that and you run with it, and you just pursue it, you know what
Exactly,
I mean?
the vocation. So that's why we mentioned the vocation and how we can take these skill sets and how they can be implemented in a person's lives to bring them great reward, or to bring them a lifestyle or a manner of living that is appropriate for them. And that is what our topic is tonight for our viewing and listening audience. We're live at CAN TV 21, cantv.org/hotline. You can view us online as well. Give us a call, 312-738-1060. Go ahead, Ork, if you want to share some more with us before we take the next caller.
Well, what you probably should do is you should draw your name on a sheet of paper, and if somebody give you $1 for it, you in business.
That's so true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt.
I just want to check in with you, Tricks, man. I like what y'all doing over there, man.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Much love always, man. And look forward to growing and the next phase of our experience. Thank you.
That's so great. I just wanted to touch on the fact that, that's that education piece, right? Talking to the pioneers and those that did it before you. Because a lot of times young people kind of step into a space where things are already up and moving and productive, and they just see the finished product and they're like, I can do that. Mm-hmm. And there's really no one to give them those little
right. So they might miss
information.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
So it's a crucial part to the journey.
Yes, indeed.
That we do that.
Yes,
have
indeed.
Those conversations.
And we want to branch off for a minute and go into to give a little detail. Let's give a little detail on what we're discussing here as it relates to graffiti and graffiti art and street art. Different aspects of what we do. I'm going to cover a few basic primary areas, those being the art. When we mention education and vocation, one basic aspect of the art form itself that can be easily and readily recognized would be the application of it itself, the art form itself, learning about spatial perception and dimensions, and learning about different aspects of perspective and backgrounds, midgrounds, foregrounds, different aspects of the creative endeavor. One point I think that would be good to emphasize is to reference the aspect of the creative endeavor, meaning the concept of the creative endeavor itself, in the whole concept of creation. The sounding of the word as a defining reference to creation, or the creative aspect. The giving of a name, just as a mom or mother or family gives a child a name, and we as artists often give other writers or other younger upcoming artists names, and those names they take, just as Oracle said, that those names need to be taken to higher ideal and lofty pursuits and things of those natures, and that's how we define ourselves. So we mimic a lot of things of the basic creative endeavor, given a name. You go and learn a craft, you learn an art, you go and do an activity, and you take that and take it and develop it and make it into something great and good. The next thing would be the practice. The practice meaning they're different individual or separate practices that are collectively practiced universally by all artists, like different aspects of choosing a space or different aspects of delivering a mural project. One, for example, being, let's say, for example, you have a mural, a wall, and you create a painting that has a tree. And you use that tree to define some type of reference to a character or something like that. So these types of skill sets are directly transferable. And so I'm speaking with Amina today on different aspects of how we can approach them in an academic sense, meaning we can transfer them over and apply them to the classroom.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, there's so many. A lot of my current work revolves around hip hop, but there's so many different angles where we can take what we learned in this arena and translate over to this arena. Even as a songwriter, as an MC, for me, I can create a song that's for this area, but I can also go and write a jingle,
yes, indeed. Yes.
Or
Yeah.
do some other television kind of music. So I can cultivate in that space and be creative. But there's so many other avenues that we can take those things to. I know a lot of graffiti artists who have gone into advertising and marketing and become art directors at places because of their expertise in learning that.
So there's that the topic again being education and vocation, and then barrier and how close they are. Another aspect of graffiti and graffiti forms is the craft itself, meaning going from the two-dimensional or visual works and working in other mediums. Learning the craft of how to do certain things. And then there's the cultural component of enculturation, of passing down historical precedents and giving reference to forefathers or early pioneers.
Absolutely.
So it has a direct parallel to mainstream culture and how we carry and what it denotes what a culture is. So it's very interesting, and we'll entail and uncover different aspects of that as we go along in the episode. And collectively, I hope this work will be one of the great works for S.H.E Gallery as well. Glad to be a host. SheGallery.net, sharing his energy. Gallery.net is available online. They've been instrumental here in the Chicago area doing different aspects of social media, public media, and broadcasting as it relates to key issues here in the community. Thanks again. So we're here live at CAN TV. Give us a call, 312-738-1060. We're joined by our esteemed guest, Miss Amina Hawkins. And yes, let's continue.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch on something you said as it relates to, in the graffiti arts world, and something that parallels, very much so in the music area, is this sense of not learning the craft, maybe by not having, mentors or people to pass it down to you. So a lot of young people just see rap and they don't understand the concepts behind MCing or what it takes to be a good MC. They just see, oh, I can do that, and I can get a SoundCloud, and I can put something out without really understanding it. And in the same vein, they also don't learn about the pioneers. There's so many, people calling themselves hip hop who have no idea who DJ Kool Herc is, who Grandmaster Flash is, who Kaz is, who Coke Rock is. They have no idea who these people are, but you call yourself an MC. So it is incumbent upon us that are elder practitioners to hold steadfast and make sure that we are properly passing the torch for the next generation, and that we're not leaving anyone behind.
I agree.
Yeah, and that we're protectors of this culture that we've been entrusted with.
And in reference to that concept of youth or early people who want to adapt the form but without proper introduction or induction into the art or the craft, or it can become a derivative or what people call hybrid or what have you. And that relates to mimicry, and mimicry being the form of flattery. So they want to mimic it, they enjoy it. It's not that but if they don't have the proper upbringing.
Right. Yeah. And it's incumbent upon us, if we are to preserve the integrity of the culture, that we make sure that this tradition stays pure, and that we are passing this on to the youth and the next generation in a way that is meaningful, that can preserve it for the future, so that in 40 years we're not looking back and people are like, oh, we don't MC no more because we do something different. So it's important. It's important for us who practice the culture to make sure that we teach and we educate and mentor and support the artists that are coming up.
Okay, I agree. Okay, thanks again for joining us. We're live here at cantv.org, CanTV21. You can give us a call at 312-738-1060. We're talking about street art and graffiti art as it relates to education and vocation. Our previous episodes we talked about dealt with galleries and collectors, art and the craft of itself, and the phenomenon. And collectively, that is what we want to share, is where this art form is, where it's been going. We talked about its technological components, its science components, its social components, and how a lot of mainstream society somehow emulated some of the aspects of this culture, of that culture. And that is what we want to talk a little bit more about. I want to share a different aspect of the writing form, since that's what we're talking about, graffiti and graffiti writing. Early on, writing itself, because there's a big aspect of graffiti and the graffiti form being the letter, of course, the letter form. And we talked about earlier about the creation endeavor and the creative aspect and creating using the letter form. Just as you create any type of artistic form, the letter form shares all those tenets and structures and different aspects of creation as well. And the emphasis being what is called universality, and that relates to writing as it being the versal or universal, and the versal being a letter form that was created in the 1700s or so, and it became the de facto hand, the writing style that was used or implemented in calligraphers and book writers and publishers of the time. This style was created as certain other forms became too dense and too ordered, and a lot of the writers and scribes and illuminators decided to create a universal letter form, and a representation of it being the initial to represent this, the introduction of upper and lowercase letters. How this relates to graffiti in its educational sense, because we're at a crossroads right now, and that relates to education and vocation. One aspect in the classroom we talked about was the pen, and the pen as a tool, and as we've been using a pen as a writing tool for quite some time, and the use and inclusion of digital mediums with keyboards and electronics and technology have some adverse effects, and these things we need to be mindful of as we are about preservation and keeping true to what we do as artists. So all these tenets reflect on us as artists, and I look forward to sharing these in future episodes. Anything you want to close before we close?
I was just thinking about what you were saying about the universal letters, and it was just, I reflect things on music a lot, and I'm thinking about like the universality in the drum beat, or the universality in the way that, you know, black folks tell stories through our music. And so just the uniqueness in how we're able to take this one thing and it transcends and is represented in so many different forms. It's very
And the concept of writing, you know, being movement.
Right.
Without that movement, this is carpal tunnels. You understand? So there's a lot of that. This sitting, carpal ergonomics. There's a lot of factors we'll talk about in future episodes. But thanks for joining us again.
Excellent.
This is She Gallery, Can TV. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. 312-738-1060. We have a couple more minutes. If you have any additional questions or concerns, you can contact us on She Gallery's website, sharinghisenergy.net. Yeah.